The chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Torres, for 5 minutes.
So my question is directed toward the director. I'm the future congressman for Riverdale and the Bronx. Riverdale happens to be home to the Russian diplomatic compound, which stands as one of the highest buildings at one of the highest points in the Bronx. It's both literally and metaphorically a structure of surveillance towering over the Bronx. The compound is so shredded in secrecy that not even the fire department could gain access when a fire broke out more than a decade ago. And according to a retired FBI special agent, Robert Dreek, it's an open secret that there are Russian spies disguised as diplomats residing at the Russian diplomatic compound. In 2015, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District arrested and charged Evgeny Barakov with conspiring to act as an agent of the Russian Federation on American soil. Mr. Barakov lived in Riverdale in close proximity to the Russian diplomatic compound. So in the FBI's view, does the Russian diplomatic compound pose a homeland security threat?
Well, Congressman, I think we may have provided a classified briefing to you on this topic, but if we can supplement that, I'd be happy to do that. I will say that the Russian intelligence services are perhaps the most active and aggressive here in U.S. soil, and in no place more so than in the city of New York.
And would you consider that a homeland security threat?
I consider the Russian intelligence services activity here in the U.S. to be a homeland security threat.
Under the Foreign Mission Act, the FBI has the authority to reject, on homeland security grounds, the siting of a new embassy or consulate. Section 4305 D2 reads as follows, quote, after December 22nd, 1987, real property in the United States may not be acquired by or on behalf of the foreign mission of a foreign country if, in the judgment of the FBI director, the acquisition of that property of that country might substantially improve the capability of that country to engage in intelligence activities directed against the United States. Do you think the Russian diplomatic compound, in the words of the Foreign Mission Act, substantially improves the capability of Russia to engage in intelligence activities directed against the United States government?
Well, I'd be more comfortable taking this up in classified session. I'm not an expert on the legality parts of the interaction here, but what I will tell you is that I know that the FBI's concerns from a counterintelligence perspective with respect to the Russian intelligence services are something that we discuss with the State Department, which has an important role here quite frequently. And I'm very proud of the work, for example, that we were able to do together to ensure the closing, for example, of the San Francisco consulate for many of the same kinds of reasons that you're alluding to.
And I just want to be clear, I'm not asking for confidential numbers or information. I'm simply asking, does the public have a right to know the FBI's view on whether a compound in their backyard poses a threat to the security of the homeland? And that can be answered without divulging highly sensitive information.
Well, I can answer in a general sense, which is that we are concerned about the Russian intelligence services activity in the U.S., including in New York, and their ability to exploit their diplomatic presence to accomplish that. More than that, I think I would have to wait and have us brief you on that, as I think we have to some extent already in closed session. And it's not because I don't absolutely, as somebody whose parents still live in New York, care deeply about the issue that you're concerned about, but I just want to be careful about how I answer the question.
Suppose the Russian diplomatic compound had never been built in Riverdale in the 1970s. If the Russian government were proposing to build the Russian diplomatic compound today, would the FBI reject it under the Foreign Mission Act?
Well, I'm reluctant to engage in hypotheticals other than to say, as I've said, that we have seen a long history of the Russian intelligence services abusing and exploiting their diplomatic presence in the U.S., including in New York, for purposes that are not in the interests of the United States. And we will continue to express our views fairly forcefully in the interagency in that regard.
I suspect the answer is no, that we would never allow this structure of surveillance to be built in 2022 in Riverdale, and the fact that espionage in the Russian diplomatic compound has essentially been grandfathered in is as indefensible to me as it is inexplicable. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.